Moses told Joshua to go out and fight. And then Moses took Aaron and Hur with him, and he went to a top of a hill that overlooked the battle. And the Bible says that whenever Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed, but whenever he let his hand down, the tide would turn and the Amalekites would prevail. Verse 12 then says this, but Moses' hands grew weary. How could they not? You ever tried to just lift your hands? Just hold them up for a long period of time? It doesn't take long before you get tired. It doesn't take long before they start to hurt. It doesn't take long before your hands start to tingle because the blood is running away from your fingers and running down your arms. It doesn't take long before you realize, I can't do this for nearly as long as I thought I could. So imagine for a minute, because we know this Sunday school story, but we need to remember the reality of the story. Imagine for a moment that Moses, as the leader of Israel, is standing on a hill overlooking his friends fighting a battle against an enemy. They're literally at war where life and death is at stake, and if his hands are up, everything goes well, but if his hands start to drop, everything changes. Imagine the burden. Imagine the emotion. Imagine the frustration. All I have to do, they're the ones fighting. All I've got to do is keep my hands up, and I can't even do that. The Bible tells us the reality of the situation. His hands grew weary. Guys, we must stop cursing our weakness and start admitting it. Start acknowledging it. Even start understanding that our weakness is a part of God's plan for our lives. That there is something He is doing in our weakness that could not be done if we didn't have it. That if we were strong, we wouldn't lean on Him. We wouldn't call on Him. But even more, we wouldn't call on each other. We were not meant to be strong. We were meant to strengthen one another in our places of weakness. Many of you know 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. Paul had prayed 3 times for the thing that he called the thorn in his flesh. Something that was a weakness in his life. Something that was attacking him, that was wounding him, that was slowing him from the calling of apostleship. And so he asked God 3 times, take it from me. And then finally Jesus answered and said, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. My grace is enough. How many of us would trade some grace for some strength, right? So many of us, we feel weak. We feel like we should understand this. We should know how to do this. I should be over this by now. What if He's saying the same thing to you that He was saying to Paul? My grace is sufficient. Keep trying. Stop trying to be strong and receive grace. Stop trying to be better and let me do a new work or a different work in me. Stop leaning into the pain of the thorn and let me show you the purpose of the pain. What's amazing is that Paul changed immediately. As soon as Jesus said, my grace is sufficient, for my power is made perfect in weakness, Paul then said, so I will boast all the more gladly in my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. So Paul goes from take it away, take it away, take it away, to give me more, give me more, give me more. Because if your power is found in my weakness, I don't want to be strong. I want your strength to be viewed through my lack, through my inability to have my own power. Guys, we are not called to overcome our weaknesses, but to share them with each other. We are more than conquerors through Christ, not through our understanding of Christ, our faithfulness to Christ, our effort for Christ, but through His strength. My weakness isn't overcome. I become an overcomer with weakness. And somehow it happens when we join ourselves to each other. In Exodus 17, Moses' hands grew weary, and so Aaron and Hur, they went and got a rock for Moses to sit on. And then while Moses sat on this rock, Aaron stood on one side and held up one arm, and Hur stood on the other side and held up the other arm. And we have this beautiful picture of God bringing about strength without taking away weakness. See, because here's what I would have done. If I was Aaron or Hur, I would have been praying, I would have been speaking in tongues, I would have been warfaring, make him stronger, make him stronger, make him stronger. And Aaron and Hur understood something. Let's be his strength. Let's step into his weakness. Let's allow him to be weak and give him our strength. In Moses' weakness, he called on the elders and they strengthened him. I love what Exodus 17:12 says. So his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. His hands never stopped being weary, but they also stayed steady because someone else stepped in and held his hands for him. His weary hands became steady and the strength of Aaron and Hur's arms. If Moses had believed he should do it himself, everything would have been lost. But his understanding that in my weakness I lean into your strength, everything changed.